charts, you can see what works, what doesn't work in terms of traffic and clickstream data, basically. For just about any site in most countries in various languages. It's a collection of tools. Some are free, some are paid. I've been in charge of SEO since the beginning, pretty much. So I guess that 2009. Started off as a freelance. It was called Similar Sites back then. It wasn't Similarweb. I was working as a freelancer for a while, and then it just kind of blew up, got big, and I joined full time. I'm now in charge of SEO, PPC, and the social. Basically, traffic. I know how to get top of funnel traffic. It's what I've been doing for, I guess, 12 years or so now. And I guess we can start. So this is a slide about Similarweb, what we do, how great we are and all that. And we can just jump right in. So this is going to be about technical SEO. I called it server-side SEO. It's not exactly precise. They're probably different names that describe the same sort of idea. But I wanted to talk about the part of SEO that is not really on page. It's not really off page. It's more connected to your front and back end. Not pure code, but mostly code, and a lot of it has to do with crawling. The technical considerations quite often can make a huge difference in terms of success. I've had a lot of projects where almost all of what I did was technical. Similar Sites, for example, is a good example. It's what was the precursor for Similarweb. Similar Sites was a very large dynamic site, and almost everything we did was just pure technical gains. At the peak, we got to something like 10 or 12 million visitors a month from Google on a site that today I look back and I think, okay, we were a little spammy. But we did it with a very solid technical foundation. Links we were getting from the universe. People linked to us for free. And because of the history and some of the legacy here, I was limited to mostly technical. I had very little control over the content, and getting links was a little dangerous. And I did what I had to do, mostly with technical changes. It's something I believe in. As an SEO consultant, I love projects where you inherit someone's big old messed up site with all sorts of technical problems, because that's where I can usually show the quickest gains. Okay, having said all that, I've been in this for a while, and it's an ever-changing game. Google's changing, and over the last, it's probably been 2-3 years in a way, but it takes time until things, from when they start to happen and until they hit our collective SEO consciousness, until we're aware of them. So some of these things are probably new to many people. And some of the things that are a little older are changing. Like Google has an idea, they come up with a big grand statement, and then it can take a few years until it actually does what they want them to do. So there have been some changes, and one of the biggest, and I'm sure, let's forget panda and penguin and all that, all the other animals. Some of the biggest changes are basically Google's getting smarter, they're getting more mature, it's growing up as a service, and they're getting much better at understanding websites. The whole, I guess crawling is one way of putting it, but it's a little deeper than that. And they've changed. It used to be, when I started SEO, we were thinking of Google bot or spiders, and we were thinking of a simple program, not different from links, if anybody remembers it. Basically, some kind of script that hits a page and then goes from one link to the other like a dumb machine crawling the web. And this was true. It's how, at least we all believed it was true, up until I don't know, a couple of years ago, where Google basically they call it a headless browser, and it's a browser built on the Chrome engine without a user interface or a human to drive it. So I guess, you know, the title alluded to romance and love and all that. And, you know, where there is romance, there are lies. So let's start with the biggest lie is it's not even a spider. Googlebot is it's a browser, not a simple crawler. It's a browser that can parse and see, quote unquote, your site very similar to a way that a human can see it. So it can render pages visually. It hits the DOM. So any element that's in the DOM is accessible, and it can execute AJAX, JavaScript, and forms. Now this is something hit our consciousness not long ago, but there's been talk about this as early as 2010, so it really is not that new in a way. But no one seems to be aware. We all pretend that, you know, Googlebot is a dumb script that basically goes from line to line, and it's not that true. Another big change is cookie handling. When I was working on similar sites, we needed to tell the difference between a human and a bot for many reasons. None of them were shady. And excuse me, we used to do it basically with a cookie. We'd serve a cookie. If the cookie was accepted, we would assume it was a human. If the cookie was not accepted, we assumed it was a bot, a Google bot. So that was the one way to segregate or sniff a bot. Very simple, simply with a server cookie. That's not true anymore. It has not been true for at least till 2014. I've not heard too much chatter about this online. It seems like it's one of those things that maybe were recognized as a fact and then forgotten because it's too depressing. But you know, Cyrus Shepard is, you know, the SEO for mods, fairly good authority. There have been some others. Tom Anthony is the person that first came out with this, came out with online, another SEO. So you got to take into account that cookies are more limited. They're getting more and more limited in a lot of ways. They're less and less useful to us. This particular thing hit me kind of hard because there's some stuff I was doing where I really needed a very simple way to tell you know, human from bot, and makes me a little sad to see it go. Okay, now keep going. Okay, so the new Google bot is also a very greedy bot, therefore a little bigger. The new bot basically requires, almost demands access to all your files, and it wants everything fast. So where a few years ago you're building a site, it was pretty standard to block some of your CSS, some of your scripts, a lot of JavaScript, a lot of admin files used to get blocked. WordPress, a lot of installs still have a default robots.txt, for instance, that blocks all sorts of files that Google now demands. They want. And they have said this on record, that blocking any element that a page requires for rendering may have an impact on your search ranking. So don't block anything. There's a misconception with robots.txt. Opening stuff up in robots.txt will never open your site up to some sort of attack. There's absolutely no safety repercussions. Something a little bit misunderstood. So keep everything wide open for the bots. And something else that's important is you can limit the bot in terms of what's called the crawl rate, how fast they can hit your site. You can limit this either via Google Webmaster Tools or through the robots.txt. You can set a crawl rate limit there. I would strongly suggest not doing that. If things are going well, the bots are going to come on they're going to come hard on your site. They're going to eat up a lot of your bandwidth. I've worked on sites where maybe 30% of the traffic was bots. This is high traffic sites, so they were kind of annoying. But if you wanna play in the big leagues, you want traffic, you got to be able to deal with the repercussions. And that includes getting hit really hard by bots. Let them have it. Limiting it basically is this, you're showing weakness and you're showing technical ineptitude. You're basically saying that you're not ready. You're not really ready for the big time. So unless it's absolutely necessary because they just, they're bringing down your server and for whatever reason you can't really upgrade your technology for something a little better, other than life or death. Never limit them. Let them go as crazy as they want. It's all good. Now something we need to discuss quickly is PR or link juice. The PR PageRank has been talked a lot about a lot lately. Not lately, but has been talked about. Lately, there's been a little quiet. A lot of people stopped believing in PageRank or stop referencing PageRank. It does exist. It's not something. It's changing. It's not really the little green bar we used to have on our Google add-ons. So don't think of the 1 to 10 number on a green line. PageRank is probably calculated on the fly. It's kind of a live creature. It's just an algorithm that gives weight and passes weight. I personally think of it like chi or energy sometimes. It helps me understand and explain it. Link juice basically refers to the same thing, and it's still very much around. The thing that gets a little unclear is now with Google and their improved abilities, they can crawl scripts, the JavaScript, forms, Ajax. A lot of these things that they're crawling have links, and these are links that used to be not counted. They were not part of the old link graph. And today, there's I don't think there's a consensus. I don't think people really know now what happens. So I got something in JavaScript. It's not meant to be accessible, but Google can find the link. I don't think anyone really knows whether that link or what looks like a link is passing any PageRank. It's an open question. Personally, I would consider when you're thinking in terms, what does my page have? Then normally in SEO would think of only the text links, anchor text links, the regular links we were all used to. You should probably be thinking in terms of all the links in your page, and that includes links in the code. That includes links that don't look like links. It could be a file path without an href or without any sort of link command or just a file. It looks like a file. I would personally count that when I'm thinking of the outgoing links on a page. And another related point is that if we have links, when Google is seeing more links, some of these links are passing PageRank, some are not. Both links are most likely helping your site get indexed. So you should be thinking of internal links now in terms of something that's helping you get indexed and something that can help you pass juice. So it can do one or the other, or it can do both, but it doesn't necessarily have to. And it's one more thing to keep in mind. And it's a big question. There are a lot of nuances we're not going to get into. Just be aware. Okay, so server-side SEO, technical SEO. One of the most important concepts is crawling and a crawl budget. So what is the crawl budget, and how does it affect me? And I guess think of it in terms of like a household budget. You have $10 and you have to buy groceries and you have to budget $2.50 a week or whatever it is. You can only buy as many groceries as you have money for. Google, when they discover or crawl a site, they allocate a certain amount of resources. They're willing to invest X getting to know the site, and until things change, all they're willing to invest is X. And if the site has Y or X times 5 pages, they're not going to see them all. They don't really care at the beginning. So you have to think, and it's always, even an experienced, you've been around for a while, your site's 10 years old. You still have a crawl budget. It might be much larger, but you still have a budget. And this comes into play on big sites. When you're doing SEO for big, complicated sites, a large site, everything is at scale. The good and the bad, and you want to basically get your money's worth. You want to get as much out of Google as possible, and that means understanding that there is a budget, and then trying to deal with it, make the right decisions. Now, why should you care? I guess is the most important question, and the answer is traffic. Really, more pages crawled means more pages indexed, and the more pages in the index, the more traffic you're going to get, assuming your site is healthy. Whenever I'm trying to forecast my own work, I think in terms of index pages. I know if I can get my count of index pages up, I'm also going to get more traffic. That's just how it is. So that's the reason we should all care. It's more traffic. And now when we think in terms of crawling, you have, but this is, I'm saying probably because nothing in SEO is certain, but the depth of how much you get crawled is probably based on these 4 things. The first is the amount of incoming links, and today there might also be buzz, how much people talk about you. The more chatter, the more links, the more Google is going to invest in crawling your pages. The second thing is content creation, the rate and the amount. How often do you add new content? How much new content do you add? The more content you add, the more often you do it, the more often Googlebot is going to visit you. And then a very important point, especially for large sites, of course, is trust. I think that when Google sees a new site, they kind of think to themselves, what kind of spam is this site pretending not to be? That's how it seems. And they start off with very little trust. And trust builds up, and as it does, they are going to crawl more and more of your content, and that means a lot of things, but it means that stuff is going to take time. It's hard to get. You're not going to have a new site and get 10 million pages indexed within a month or two. Even though I personally remember it was a few years ago, some spammer got a few billion pages indexed in a matter of months, but he was trying hard. He's not a good example, and I think Google got a little bit better at defending themselves. It's basically you add content, they crawl it, it leaves them open. They're spending a lot of resources. The best way they can, I guess, one of the best ways to protect your resources is only to give them to people who you don't think, or where the odds are low that they'll abuse them. So trust is a big issue, and one of the ramifications is that you have content. Some of it is bad, some is good. You have a finite budget, and that means that any low quality content getting crawled is just a huge waste. So you want to keep, and there are a lot of ways. There's a lot of types of bad, low quality content. You want to keep it all to a minimum because you're wasting your budget. It could have been used on something else. And then last point is when you're thinking of crawling of a site, think both in terms of how many pages across the site, like a lateral type of crawl, but also think in terms of depth per page, because Google can hit your page. They can fetch basically the document head. You know, they don't always take the HTML or the body, and they can keep on going. And many times, at least my own experience, they won't always fetch the whole page. They'll sample, they'll nibble at it, and to get them to go into the page itself, we're back to trust, creation rates and amounts, and links. So keep in mind that just because they're fetching a page doesn't mean they're actually fetching all of it. It's kind of important and then understated. And then what I personally, maybe it's my own bias, but basically I look at crawl stats as a rough or quick indicator of the overall SEO health of my website. If I'm looking at how many pages are indexed, I'm looking at the trends, and I'm looking at various errors and parameters. And when crawling and indexing, when everything is working fine there, it says something about the rest of your site and general approach sometimes. So a healthy, it's like with a horse, you look at the teeth, maybe same kind of idea. Good indexing activity indicates quite a bit. Keep that in mind. And something I alluded to earlier, but life is hard. It's going to get harder always. And it's not always easy to get many pages indexed on a new site. It's just something you have to live with. You have to give it time, limit errors. There's a lot you can do, but some of it is just a matter of time. That's how life is. Okay, so since we have a budget, we're limited. We should probably be blocking some of the content. It's not all equal. So what should you be blocking? That's the question. And I'm going to start with the golden rule. The golden rule of SEO. Most SEOs are familiar with the rule and want to form more. Another, very few programmers. They're always surprised. And that's the one file path per page. When I say page, I mean a unique piece of content. Never more than one file path. For a programmer, for instance, with a trailing slash, without a trailing slash, HTTPS or non-secure, with a www, without a www, with a parameter, with a hash bang. A lot of them, a developer would say my server treats them all as the same, or it's really the same. It's the same thing, but it isn't. Google is kind of finicky, maybe even a little dumb in that respect. But two pieces of content, two of the same. You have the same content with file paths that are very similar. Could even be with Google, the spelling lowercase versus uppercase. They're going to treat them as two separate pages. So one file path per page always. First rule. And then, what should you be blocking? So the first thing is low quality. You got pages that are crappy. You got pages that are thin. You got pages that are mostly UGC. You got pages that aren't ready. Pages that used to be better. Pages that are dated. Block them. There's no need to inflate Google's index with your crap. You can either, if you don't feel like blocking, you have time, you can always improve the pages. Take this dilapidated house and paint the wall, kill the weeds, add some flowers in the front, plant a tree, whatever. So either identify your low quality or your garbage, and then either block or improve it. And just a quick way to identify would be using your own analytics. Pages that aren't getting traffic, pages that have your exit pages, the pages with the highest bounds, all the regular parameters. And something else that should be blocked are duplicates. Now, there's a lot of ways you can see duplication. It really does come in many, many forms. It can be duplicate content. It could be the same content in duplicate categories. It could be canonical issues, as in with a www, without one, secure and unsecure, casing, and I'm sure I forgot a bunch. So duplication, any kind of duplication, the best thing you can do is just is delete. If you can't delete, then block. Sorting options, if you have a page, e-commerce, whatever, there's 10 ways to sort your data. You're going to have a default sort. That's what you go with. The rest you block. You can either, canonical is one way of blocking. Robots, meta robots, but block it. Then there's all the non-existent pages, basically stuff that you might not even be aware of, you've never thought about. You won't know that they exist until you start searching in Google or spidering your own site with SEO tools, which I'll get to a bit later on. But I'm always surprised at the new stuff I see. Just the duplication just never ends, and should all be blocked. Now, how to block content. This is, I guess you've noticed already. This is, I'm talking about basically these are all basic features, or nothing that seems too advanced. But I'm assuming that the people listening have a bit understanding of the SEO basics, and I'm just looking at the stuff that's either a little more interesting or doesn't get mentioned, or is commonly mistaken or misunderstood. So a lot of the very, very basic stuff, I'm just assuming you all know, and unless it's interesting, I won't get into it. If you have questions, bring up later, we can talk about it. So how to block and some misconceptions. I've said this earlier, I'll say it again, but it's always better to delete stuff than to block it. Programmers don't always agree, but there's no point getting into games, the canonicals or redirects. All those solutions are usually worse than just deleting your garbage. So that's the first thing. If you can delete it, then don't bother blocking. Just do that. Something else you want to keep in mind now is that anything available via the DOM, document object model, is accessible to modern search bots or Google. This was not often the case. SEOs, a lot of our techniques depended on this not being the case once. Today, I would basically make the assumption that if it's in the DOM, they get it. Keep that in mind. Now, some of these things might not pass link juice, but they're still there. Google's still finding them. Always remember them. They can see everything, pretty much. Anything a human can see, they can see. And okay, now this is, I've had arguments about this. I think that's why I just took a quote from Google and put it on the slide here. But robots.txt, which is one of the most familiar ways for most people to block content, it only works internally. It's an internal command. So you can have a file and you can block it in robots.txt, and if some schmuck on a different site has a link to that file, Google will follow the link, and they will index the page. They'll index the page a little differently. Some of you have probably seen it. You search in Google and you see a page with a funny-looking snippet saying that it's been blocked via robots.txt. It's still in the index. So robots.txt is it's I used to describe it as a bouncer, but it's not even a bouncer because it's a recommendation. It's more like in New York where you go into a museum. There's a guy with a ticket booth, but there's a small sign saying you only pay if you want to. So it's all suggested prices. Robots.txt is just suggestions for where polite bots go or don't go. So if the only way you're blocking something is with via robots.txt, you're not really blocking it. This is something people find hard to believe. Trust me on this one, I guess. So that's our first misconception. Our second issue or misconception is some people, they want to block something so hard, they throw everything at it. So they'll block it with robots.txt, they block it with a meta robots tag, and then God knows what else. And it doesn't work. Now, if you're gonna use a meta robots and a robots.txt on the same page, what's gonna happen is that Google will check your robots.txt file before hitting the site. They see the page is excluded. They don't go into the page. Because the robots told them not to go in the page. Since they don't go in the page, they never get to see your meta robots tag. They never hit it. They got blocked on the robots.txt page. So if you're gonna block, if you're gonna use robots, don't use meta robots. But I strongly suggest using the meta robots tag as opposed to the robots.txt. It's much more permanent. Never use them together unless it's an old block. It's an issue you've had in the past. Google knows. Then maybe it's less significant. But if you're trying to trying to solve something that's current, then never mix the two. So yeah, the best thing to do is use the meta robots. And then you go into the Google Webmaster Tools console and you can delete the file. And I block first, then I delete. And then you got to remember to re-delete every 6 months. If it's persistent. Google can have a long memory for some stuff. If you find, but it'll vary on God knows what. But if you're deleting stuff via Webmaster Tools, remember it's a 6-month thing, and then you want to check. I just schedule something in Google Calendar. It makes it easier. And prevents crap from sneaking back into your results. It's okay. XRobots. This is something many people are not familiar with. Meta robots is the tag that goes on the page HTML. There's something called the XRobots, and this goes in your HTTP head. It's in the document head. This is the information that comes before the actual page. Any file you're going to have on a server will have a head, and that means that you could use the XRobots in cases where you couldn't use a meta robot, like a PDF or an XML or a Word doc or stuff like that. So enjoy it, XRobots. He's a good guy. And this is something that I do a little, but I don't do enough of. There are a lot of reasons why you might want stuff. You might not want every element on the page to actually get indexed. And it's getting more of a problem. A lot of the stuff that we used to use doesn't really work anymore. Some of the suggestions here are kind of fuzzy, just things you need to test. But frames, it's not really clear what's happening with frames. I guess it's changing. But it might be a way to have stuff on a page where it's not attributed to the page, but this is dynamic. I don't know what it'll be like in half a year. Tabs used to be okay. We used to put stuff in tabs where the SEO wanted it, the product guy didn't want it, so you compromise on hiding it in a tab and making it accessible to bots to make sure that the tab content loads with the initial page load, and we used to be golden. Google now will downplay. They give a lot less important content that's not open by default to users. So that might be something you can use to your advantage as well. The same thing with forms or any kind of animation. And lazy loading. Lazy loading we've been using on images for a long time now. Seems to work in that respect. And it might have other uses. So play around. Like try to basically Google makes some kind of headway, something new happens. You can always use that new thing to your advantage, in ways that Google didn't expect or intend for you to play with it. Okay, so redirect logic. Redirects are an inescapable part of working online. You love them or hate them, but you always need them. And a lot of people, they're not always doing it that well. There are lots of issues that can be improved, can be critical, especially on larger sites. A lot of what I'm saying, most of my recent experiences for fairly large sites, they behave a little differently than small sites. My bias, I guess, is more for considerations that have to do with large sites. So hops or chain, redirect chain or hop. You have a 301 to a 301 to a 302 to a 200, or a 301 to a 301 to a 200, or whatever variation. Each hop you're losing some link juice. Some of these hops you probably didn't intend or think about. It can be stuff, or a lot of the times it's the stuff like the trailing slash, lowercase, www, all the canonical issues. What you want to do is you want to, when you're making your rewrite in htaccess or whatever it is you're rewriting, you're making a rule or rules, try to catch as many instances as possible with a single rule always. You don't want one rule from WW to non-WW, and then from trailing slash to no trailing slash, and then another rule. You might look at capitalization. So that'll create three possible redirects, or it's something that you could catch with just one hop. And this is okay. It's a no-brainer. As an SEO, you're thinking, God, this is very simple, but I always get quite asked about this. So as a default, your redirect should be a 301. Really, don't use any. I mean, a 302 is if it's temporary, meaning it's gonna change in a day or 2 or 3 days. But if it's more than a few days, then it's gonna be a 301. Don't use other. There are other redirect codes. It's exotic redirects, but you really should be doing either 301 or 302. A 302 is only when it's very, very temporary. That means that 99% of the time, your redirect should be 301s. That's simple, but keep on getting surprised. Now, having said that, sometimes you can't do a 301. It could be because you got some crappy CMS, some other considerations. I've had it happen to me before, and this is an old school trick. I don't think it's so common anymore, but it still works. If you don't have an option and you want to do a 301, then you can use a meta refresh, which is in the HTML. And if you set the meta refresh to 0, Google will treat it as a 301. If you set the meta refresh to 5 seconds, it'll treat it as a 302. So this is just something you want to keep in mind. Now, redirects, when they're not done well, they can cause a lot of broken links. And Google hates broken links. They really don't like it. From their point of view, it's an inefficiency. It makes them work harder. They don't like it. Personal feeling is that I think they kind of treat it the way Americans treat mowing your lawn, where if you're a good, upright citizen, you don't beat your dog, you don't do any of that, you're going to mow your lawn. It's a very simple thing. Mowing your lawn doesn't take much time, has an impact on how everything looks, it affects the neighborhood. People that don't mow the lawn aren't really trustworthy anymore. You don't want a neighbor like that. I got a feeling that Google kind of sees stuff like all the basic housekeeping errors, 404s, kind of the same way. So they don't like them. They're not good for you either. There's a lot of reasons why they're not good for anyone. You want to avoid them. It's not that hard. You got analytics. You can build a 404 report. You can, there's all sorts of tools. There are plugins that'll do it for you on WordPress as well. You can do your own scanning with SEO bots or spiders, and you should be doing this at least once every month or two. Really, you get a more efficient site, less problems, a lot of missed opportunities that you can see, funny stuff you never thought about, all sorts of things become apparent when you check for 404s on a regular basis. Okay, next we're going to go and talk about sessions, parameters, and cookies briefly, in terms of how they impact a site and crawling. Okay, so this is very simple to me, at least, you think, but never, ever, ever print a session ID, any sort of unique parameter. None of that should really be in the code. It should never be on a link. It should never pass in the URL. Any kind of unique identifier, whether it's for a conversion, information about the surfer, something about the click, all of that you should pass in cookies, really. And the worst thing you can do is you have a link, and then the link has the anchor, and there's the URL, and having some kind of session ID on the URL. Really the worst thing you can do. Never, never, ever print them on page. Pass them behind the scenes, really. Not that hard. Can make a big difference. Parameters can be used for various things. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. A lot of times you don't have a choice. It would be wrong to say never use them. It would be wrong to say they never hurt. You need to be mindful. You have to be aware of your parameters. You have to be aware of what they represent, how unique they are, and take the appropriate action, really. So with parameters, you can, you come back to the same usual stuff. So you can either block, use a canonical, strip and redirect. But just be aware of what you have. Be aware of the parameters, because each one is treated as a separate page by Google. So cookies, yeah, basically, Chinese 14 cookie. Use cookies to pass all your session ID, basically, all your session information, any unique identifiers. A cookie is the way to go. And for whatever reason, you don't have any other alternatives, you're stuck with all sorts of nasty parameters in your code, just in the file path, wherever. You can block them via Google Webmaster Tools. They have a screen for parameter handling. It's not always reliable. It doesn't always work the way you expect it to. If you don't have a choice, go ahead and use it, but it's much better to just not use them, really. Okay, now talking about cookies. So cookies are a bit of a problem. They get deleted. They're not that persistent. They're kind of delicate. You might want to identify people for longer periods of time or a bit more solidly. And there's something called super cookies or persistent cookies. They have other names. I'm just suggesting that you think, that people understand that this exists. And then if it's interesting to you, then read a bit more about it. But there are a lot of ways to pass information that are cookie-like, but much harder to delete, and will work as well to identify a unique browser or person, I think. So super cookies, if you need to identify, then do a little bit of reading. Okay, URL structures. So there are a lot of There have been a lot of preferences over the years. SEOs, we used to talk about um, flat, like a flat structure where you don't have too many directories. And then some people prefer deep, with parameters. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. Your URL structure, if you're consistent, I don't think it matters too much whether you go flat or deep. You have 4 directories or 1 directory, one parameter, 4 parameters. If everything else is fine, then Google, they'll all work up. I've never really seen or felt that one had a definite concrete advantage over the other, flat versus deep. A lot of the times, the deeper structure, it's a little more intuitive. You have the URLs mean a little more. It's easier to organize, reads well. Go with what seems to make sense to you. What is important is to have a clear hierarchy, a directory structure, internal links. It's got to be very apparent where a page fits in your site, what section, and what section and where in the hierarchy it is. Just like you would on a page itself, you have your H1, your H2, all the way to H6. You can do bold, italics, paragraphs, quotes. You have a lot of features that help you create a document hierarchy, and you should be thinking along the same lines in terms of your whole website. A very clear hierarchy makes everything simpler. It seems to get better results in Google. Consistency. You want to be consistent with your URLs. I personally like lowercase. I suggest all that, but you could do all uppercase. You could uppercase each, the first letter in each word. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Be consistent. All lowercase just much easier. You don't want to, slash uppercase PAGE, lowercase PAG. Those would be seen as 2 separate pages, kind of ugly to the user. So all lowercase. Hyphens are better than underscores in terms of humans and copying, editing. The underscore is often hidden by the link underline itself. Basic stuff like empty spaces and odd characters. You don't really want any of that. You want to be consistent. It'll help you both with people and with spiders. And when this is a consideration, it's not technically technical, but it'll have an impact, is how clickable is your file path? Does it mean anything? Is it just random? Is it appealing? This is going to have, if anyone if you've done PPC, you've seen this yourself, but the URL itself will have an impact on how often it's clicked. It can help you and it can hurt you. So when you're making your file, the logic, when you're creating your file paths and your hierarchy, think in terms of clickable. How appealing, how sexy is my file path? It'll have a difference. And this is something where it's an opinion. You could be for, you could be against. Personally, I don't like having foreign language encoding in URLs. Google will understand it. In Israel, a lot of people have Hebrew, and usually not in the domain, but it could be for specific pages. The directories are in Hebrew. I don't like it because the encoding is ugly. When you copy and paste these URLs, they'll be very, very long. They're not human readable. It's very easy to make mistakes. They're almost impossible to give someone without copy pasting. A lot of times, if you need to submit the URL to a form or whatever it is, then they'll have some kind of space limitation, and you'll never be able to fit it with your foreign encoding. So even though In terms of CTR, sometimes you might do better with a bit of your own language in there. Overall, I would recommend against it in this case. Okay, so crawling, Google's got crawlers, Bing's got crawlers. We all have crawlers. SEO, we have our own crawlers, or ones that we've co-opted. There are a lot. There's a lot of crap, I think. These are two tools that I've been using for years, and I gain nothing by using them. But I like them. I've been using them constantly and consistently. Each one is different, and I can highly recommend both. The first one is called the IIS SEO Toolkit. It's an add-on for the IIS server, which it's installed by default. If you have Windows 7, 8, 10, maybe even XP, there's an IIS in there somewhere. It's a free add-on. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass to download, not very intuitive, which is maybe why it's not more popular with SEO. But it's an absolutely brilliant piece of code. It's very fast. It was built as a side project by someone at Microsoft. What it was built for, it's an SEO, it's a diagnostic SEO tool. It can, I use it for understanding or crawling very large sites. I'll usually do batches of 250,000 pages at a time. You can cover that in a couple hours. And I set it gently. I mean, I can be a little more aggressive. It's got a lot of functionality. There's a lot of neat things you can do with it. This really is not the time or place to give you too much detailed information. But I don't know, Google search for this SEO toolkit. See some what you can do and play around with it. It's fairly intuitive to use. You can have custom queries and reports that are pretty funky, kind of cool, and free. So the first is the SEO toolkit. The second tool, Xenu. Xenu is an older tool. It's been around forever. It wasn't built for SEOs. It's a webmaster tool. SEO started using it because that's all we had back then. There's nothing else. I don't know, 10 years ago or whenever it started. Xenu is free. It's very light, extremely quick spider. Download and run. It can, it's multi-thread. I think you can do up to 99 threads at once. It's very, very fast. Exporting data is easy. And if you right-click on any one of the addresses, you have all sorts of cool options that people aren't always aware of. So Xenu, I used to use Xenu, only Xenu before I discovered the IIS, and now it's really, I'll do both. Okay, so some quick tests. Basically, you're running a site, then you have a problem, you've lost your traffic, or whatever it is. It could be a technical problem. It could be penalty related. Penalties come in different shapes and sizes. Some are algorithmic, some are manual, some are filters. But they're, I treat them all as penalties. And it can just be something to do with your market. Sometimes Google will take a disliking to a whole class of sites or type of site. It could be seasonal fluctuations, but it could be related to your market, not just you. So, 1 second. Okay, so we have a problem. We're not sure what our problem is. For technical problems, you want to know if it's technical or not. The first thing you should do is Bing. Bing has their own webmaster tools. They're not very popular, but they are nice. They offer things that Google doesn't offer. If you've never looked at it, I recommend taking a look. And they also have the site search, site, : and then a domain. Same command as the Google site query. They have Google and Bing. They seem to work in a very similar kind of fashion in a lot of respects, especially technical. I don't listen if they're all that different. So a lot of the times, if you have a technical problem, you'll see that it's going to affect Bing and Google in a very similar kind of way. You should know how many pages you have indexed in Bing, and then 3 months from now you have a problem. You check again and you see if it's gone up, it's gone down. But if it's a technical issue, it will probably affect both Google and Bing in a very similar way. A manual penalty or any penalty will be search engine specific. So check how you're doing in Bing to eliminate the possibility of a penalty. Something else on the technical side is Google Webmaster Tools. They've got a lot of consoles there, different error screens. You want to check them. And if you happen to have lost all your traffic overnight, the first thing you should check is your robots.txt file to make sure that something didn't happen and you're not blocking. Google, you also want to check Webmaster. I've had one or two clients already where for help me, I've lost all traffic, and basically the site was blocked, disallowed to Google. Very easy to fix. So the first thing you check is that, and then Bing to see their take on it. Now, so okay, maybe it's not technical. Maybe it's a penalty. All right, for penalties, it's Google specific, so we only care about using Google. Quick checks are the first thing you want to do is you want to search for the domain URL, just the domain in Google. Your site should appear first for its own domain. If it doesn't appear first or it doesn't appear at all, it's a really good indicator of some kind of problem. You can do a similar check for a page title or an inner page URL. But then, if it's a page title, I wouldn't always expect it to be first, but I definitely would expect it to be in the first couple of pages. If it's a URL, I would expect it to be first or second. If you're searching for a URL, your own site doesn't come up first. It usually indicates some kind of problem. Usually somebody with trust. So, and then penalty. Most people are probably aware of this, but if you suspect a penalty, the first thing you should check is Moz has one, and I think there are other options. But it's like a calendar for Google updates or Google algorithm calendar. You can search for it. And it's a timeline of known algorithm updates and when they happen. If you're experiencing a traffic drop, a sharp drop, 20, 30% or more, if it's happening, it doesn't have to be on the same day. So you find, you see that there was something on December 14 or whatever. You could experience your drop a few days before or a few days after the published date. But that's definitely a check you should be doing if you consider or if you're suspicious of a penalty. And if your traffic dropped sharply during a suspect time, then yeah, it could most likely be a penalty. Now, if it's not technical, these are all quick checks. So you can do any one of these more in depth, but any one of these will take you a minute or two. Sometimes you got to think bigger than your site, and it could be the market. So you're experiencing drops. You should be searching. Use Google Trends or Similarweb. We have something similar. There are other sites that offer similar things where you're looking at online trends, either per keyword or per category, and you want to see if everyone else is dropping. Maybe it's seasonal, or maybe it's something that's applying to a whole category. But if you and all your friends are dropping together, that tells you quite a bit about why and what to do what to do next. And I guess this is a quick test. It's helped me, different things. And I'll end with that. Is check, we all know the cache. We have a Google cache for a page. Check the cache, but click on the text only link, where you're seeing the cache without any of the images. This is a rough similarity to how Google, the old Google at least, or how a bot or a program experiences your page. And a lot of times you'll see stuff that doesn't make sense, or you'll catch errors. But if you're not seeing your content or your element or link in the text-only version of the cache, or if you're seeing your content twice, or each link is appearing 4 times, this is probably how Google is getting into. Is it similar to Google has the fetch and webmaster tools? It takes a little longer. And with the cache, you can do it for sites that either you don't have a webmaster tools account for, or sites that you don't own. It'll work for anything. And that's a decent indicator. It's a little easier than some people used to. I don't know if they still do, but you can search. You turn off your CSS, you turn off JavaScript, you turn off images, and you see how the page feels. Similar idea. And that is that. I want to thank you for your time. Listening to me talk for an hour couldn't have been too easy. And let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, I don't know if Boaz can hear me, guys. If you can hear me, guys.
Yeah, I can hear.
You can hear. Okay, great. Guys, do we have any questions? I actually I saw so many people came at the end. People from I can see Romania and Hungary. Maybe it's well, you didn't count difference in time. In our web page is always GMT and other. It's impossible to put every single city, but GMT is always there. Just count, and obviously 30 minutes before the webinar we send in a link. Okay, guys, do we have any question to Boaz? It was very long and very technical, very specific. Okay, Gabor has a question. Boaz, do you mind to read it out loud?
Yeah, Gabor wants a recording.
As question, yeah, as question to me, I didn't. Yes, Gabor, we will. It's all recorded, and we will upload it in our YouTube channel in a couple of days. Just follow us. Any questions to our speaker? I will put website for our YouTube channel just right now. Do we have any questions to? Okay, it's a link to our YouTube channel. Guys, do we have a question to Similarweb? It's not every day you can ask Similarweb. It's a big company, and we have one Boaz who's been there from the beginning. Any questions? Okay, Boaz, I don't know. People are shy, or some people came too late, so they have to watch it first in the recordings. They're shy of questions, I guess. Thank you very much. It was very detailed, very detailed technical stuff. I hope people here. Okay, okay. I think we have a question from Roma.
Pagination. So, okay. What's the question is, what's the best way for the pagination indexation? And then we need much weight on the first page of pagination. I'm not sure if I understand the second part, but if you're going to have a series, pagination is when you have a series of pages, arrow, next 1, 2, 3, whatever. If you're gonna have pagination or lazy or what's very popular now, they don't call it pagination, but it's the same thing. Is the infinite scroll. Pinterest made it very popular, where you keep scrolling down and you get more and more content. That's basically JavaScript pagination. And the only way to do it properly is with you have tags. It's called there's a rel prev and a rel next. These are HTML tags. Google understands them. and it's a way to create a series of pages. And so if you're going to have pagination, then use the rel prev next tags. And if you're going to have infinite scroll pagination, then what you want to do is the approach is what they call responsive design or progressive enhancement, elegant degradation. It's probably got a lot of names, but if you're doing it that way, basically what you want to do is you build the page where the initial, like the initial code is built on the assumption that your user does not have JavaScript, so it's all HTML. So you've got pagination that's based on HTML with the prev rel, the rel prev, the rel next. On top of that, you add a layer of JavaScript. The JavaScript will only work assuming the user agent that calls the page has JavaScript enabled. Most, 99% of humans, any kind of modern browser, unless it's been set off, turned off on purpose. But when you do it that way, if they have JavaScript, they get the infinite scroll. It's very smooth and sexy and modern. If they don't have JavaScript, or if they're a bot, they get the HTML. And then you're basically taking care of both your bases at once. Now, with the question from...
there is a follow-up from Roma. Says 1,000 pages.
Okay, 1 second. That one, read Roma.
The last one.
1,000 pages in pagination. They add weight. If you want all the weight to go on the first page, what you can do is you can use a canonical tag. I would definitely use something. I wouldn't have pagination as is, like bare naked pagination doesn't seem to make any sense to me. You can stick a canonical tag on the series of pages, on say page 2 to end. And you can have a canonical tag on all of them that points back at the first page. The text doesn't have to be identical. My experience with canonicals is that it's not that predictable, but they'll work a lot of the times even if the page is not identical. It's not exactly the same. I've seen it work on where parts of the page is completely different. So I guess the easy option would just to have a canonical tag on all of the internal pages pointing back, but it's kind of ugly. It's kind of ugly. And I wouldn't, why, I don't know, Roma was asking if they should close these pages from indexing. I don't know. I don't like closing stuff unless I have a good reason to. I like having a lot of pages. So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe if they're all very low quality, repetitive, the same kind of crap, then maybe. But if they're really shitty pages, then maybe you shouldn't have them on in the first place. And you'll get more value a lot of times from better pages. So the obvious solution is just maybe to improve them. Do some bit of work on the pages where you're making them a bit better for people, and then open it up to Google. The more pages you have in the index, the more traffic you're going to get. That's something I've seen over and over and over again. So that's that.
We do have two
questions. Another question here.
Jamie and Gabor.
So James, what's the biggest difference in server-side SEO when Similarweb was just starting out and now? So we had, Similarweb, when it started, it was similar sites. Similar sites still is fairly advanced, but not the same thing as Similarweb. So the technology, I guess, the Similarweb sits on a large cluster of sites. It doesn't sit on a single server. It's a few hundred servers working together. Our code, in some respects, our code is probably, it's not better, but we could do more things. When we were smaller, we were 7, 8, 10 people. I would sit next to the programmer, tell him what I want. We'd argue about it. We could play around more. We had a little more freedom. Things we were fast too. Now we're 250 people. I have to go down the floor to see a programmer. I'm not always allowed to talk to them. I have to schedule what I want with Jira. We're agile, so we're slower. We're a lot slower. So we have to be more careful. We have to be more cautious. There's stuff that I tried back then that I'd never do today, just because it's more complicated. We have more to lose, and less direct communication with their actual development team, instead of just sitting next to a guy, your friend. Their teams with leaders, VPs, Christ knows what. So those are probably the biggest differences. I'm rambling a little. Next question is the best number of internal links on a page. There is no one number. There used to be recommendations of, I remember, I think 100 links, I remember 200 links. It's all crap. It really does vary from site to site. The more incoming links you have to your site, the more internal links you can support. The older it's been, the more trust it has, the more links you can support. And then there are different pages. It could also be, it's a matter of how many links does the page have, not just the site. So, a page that's in the navigation of a large site that gets a lot of links can support much more, many more links than an inner page on some new or smaller site. There is no one number. You want to keep it down to the absolute minimum, really. The best number is the smallest number that you can get away with. On a very large site, like if you're on Similarweb, similar sites, so we have maybe 100 or 150 million pages per site. And so if I can reduce, say, my template or my navigation, or if I can reduce it by one link, I've saved 150 million links, which is a huge amount. But that's true for large sites. On a smaller site, it's less dramatic. But it's always the least you can get away with. I've done though. I've had pages with 400 links on a page. It worked okay sometimes. But fewer is the less links you have, the more weight each link basically carries, and it doesn't really matter if they're internal or external. So the fewer, the better. Any more questions?
Do we have more questions? Do we have more questions? I guess we don't. Okay, anyway, email of Boaz just on the screen. I guess if you contact him, he will, well, and it's with an intelligent question, not with a stupid question.
So I'll respond to any concrete question. I like helping people out who think, if you have a specific question, I'll give you a specific answer.
So, okay,
try Google first.
Don't ask him
Google knows more than we.
General things. Okay, I was a long day for Boaz. I mean, a long webinar, more than 1 hour. Thank you very much, Boaz, for this very detailed one, very technical one. And thank you everybody for being with us tonight or today. Depends on where you are. Where you're from. Okay, thank you very much, Boaz. I just remind you, it's all recorded, will be uploaded in a couple of days. Tomorrow we have another webinar on Quora. So if you're interested, welcome. It's tomorrow and it will be later than today because speakers from Canada, so difference in time. Thank you very much for everybody. Thank you very much, Boaz, again for your time and your effort. Thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye. I hope I see you all again.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.